to all the Atma Jyotis. Welcome to one more session of Dharma Kshetra contemplation on the Bhagavad Gita. We are in chapter 2, which is called the Sankhya Yoga, which is also a name for Jnana Yoga. So there is another Sankhya which should not to be confused with this Sankhya. Sankhya of Kapila Muni, that's another darshana altogether. But here Sankhya means Jnana. So let us be clear about that. And then we were on to shloka number 12. And here Sri Bhagavan, there's some key points here. If people have missed this, in 2.10, it says, Tamuvacha Hrushikeshaha Prahasanniva Bharata Senayor Ubharyor Madhye Vishidantamidam Vachaha. So here, Rishikesha, the Lord of the Senses, as if smiling, O Bharata, spoke these words. So what is this as if smiling? You know, some interpretations are that he was mocking Arjuna. Is that valid? God will never mock.
No.
No. Whenever God smiles, it's a blessing. You know, he looks at you, it's a blessing. God is with you with as a charioteer. Forget about being in a charioteer. I'm looking at God. God is looking at me. It's a blessing. So he smiles, means as he's smiling means it's a very smile, mandasmita, small smile. And here the jnana flows. How can you start any jnana flowing with a mocking smile, isn't it? So that's not right. So here God is blessing entire humanity with his teachings. That is one thing. So Sri Bhagavan Vacha. And here starts the fantastic treatise on Jnana Yoga. And also in the second chapter, we have Karma Yoga. Then we have what is Dharma, Dharma, Karma, everything, Dhyana, everything is covered in this second chapter. Very, very comprehensive. And because we are not yet ready to, assimilate all this at once, we have 16 more chapters elaborating on the same truths. So 2.11, beautiful shloka. Ashocyan anvashocastvam prajnavaadanscha bhashase gatasoon agatasoonscha nanushocanti panditaha. This is where we were, not 12, we were here. Okay, people can chant this if you wish because it's very, very important.
I'll do first.
Yes.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha asochananvashocastvam prajnavaadanscha bhashase gatasunagatasuncha nanushocanti panditaha.
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 Panditaha is plural. Panditaha is singular. So, Panditaha. Okay.
I can go next. Shri Bhagavanuvach Ashocyananvashocastvam Prajnavadamscha bhashase Gatasunagatasuncha Nanushocanti panditaha.
Yes. Who wants to go next? Who is free to chant? Okay. All right. So, what did the Lord say? He said, Ashocyan anvashocastvam. You have grieved for those who should not be grieved for. Yet prajnavadamsha bhashase. You speak words of wisdom. Gata soon, the one who have left, gata. And agataha, the ones who have not yet left, the living and the dead. Nanu shochanti panditaha. The wise ones do not grieve either for the ones who are alive or for the dead. So this is the most basic shloka that we all need to understand. Why shouldn't we grieve for those who are dead? We do that. We do that, right? When somebody goes, we We grieve for them naturally because we feel a certain we have had a long association with that person, and therefore the body mind complex has all these vasanas, and so it's not easy to let go, and so we grieve. But at a deeper level, that is fine, perfectly all right. Even Krishna cried when Abhimanyu died, isn't it? But why shouldn't we grieve on the deeper level? He's saying here, Krishna. Anyone wants to explain this shloka?
Because
Because
the
sorry.
soul always remains this, it is unchanging. We need to understand the true nature of the soul. So once you understand the true nature of the soul, it is always, the same. It doesn't change. It just moves from one body to another. That's all. So
That's
with that understanding, if you go, then you don't have to grieve for the dead.
yes.
It goes on its journey.
There is no death at all for the Atma. Correct. There is no death for Atma. That is the basic understanding. One should base our entire living on that understanding. No death for Atma. Yes, Neha, what else you wanted to say?
Same thing, Purnima. That's what I also wanted to express.
Yeah. So,
Balaji,
yes, please.
I also feel like grieving is more like a very selfish process, right? When you're grieving, you're really thinking about, oh, I miss this person for this or that. So I think some of that part of grieving is the what do you call it? Oh my gosh, I was brain dead today.
Yeah.
Huh? No,
You're
it's
thinking
selfish,
of
right?
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, it's because you miss them for certain things, or you're so used to that person or being that person doing things for you.
True.
So, 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 sometimes when I'm in that mode, I try to do a mental check to myself saying, why are you doing this? Right? Like, I mean, it's a very normal human process.
Yeah.
But I think the way I try to like overcome that is by saying, is it selfish or is it truly what am I trying to do? Right.
Mm.
So then it kind of has helped me quite a bit to recover.
Right.
From
I think
state of mind.
you want to say that you want to be independent. You don't want to be dependent on the other people around you for your own happiness. Something like that.
No, I think grieving is because of that dependency. Sorry, dependency was the word which I think I was having a brain fog about. So
Dependent.
because of the dependency, I think the grieving is more, right?
Sometimes life is more of adjustments. Like, I
Yeah.
do this for this, and all those adjustments gets disturbed in some cases. So, or most of the cases.
Yes.
So
They're
it
all
can
turned
be
upside down. All the plans, laid by mice and men, they got turned upside down by God or destiny.
Yes. That's it.
So that is the one level of understanding, which is why we grieve, which is fine. And coping with that grief, we have all various methods to cope with that kind of grief at the surface level. But the more abiding knowledge is that there is no death at all for the Atma. This is the first direct teaching of Jnana given by Bhagavan. So this shloka is called as the Pratigna shloka. All these, pellets of wisdom. People have, Mahatmas have identified some shlokas in the Mahabharata, in the Bhagavad Gita, and they identify and say this is a Pratigna shloka. You concentrate on this shloka and you'll be liberated. Nanu shochanti panditaha. So Arjuna's problem was what? Ajnana. Solution is jnana. So last time we recalled the story of one monkey, Manki, a person called Monkey, who is mentioned in the Moksha Parva of the Mahabharata. Bhishma tells about the story of Monkey, a sage called Monkey. I don't know how many of you were there and how many you have registered. However, I shall recall it for you fast. It says same thing what I said, all the best laid plans of mice and men are appended by destiny. So don't build castles in the air. Just work with what you have right now. So this is this story in this sage man. He was not a sage before. He was Agnani, like most of the world, and so he was he was a farmer, and he was plowing his field, and he had 2 bullocks and a cart. That was all he had. And he tried so hard to make, 2 ends meet and earn a good living, but it was not happening. And so every day he goes to the field to plow, and he will think, I will have a very good crop this year. I will do this, I will do that. I'll build a huge house, big mansion. And, he's dreaming about the future every little second of his life. And so once he's going and he's dreaming about his beautiful, wonderful future, and there's a camel, and he comes across a camel. So he has to stop and rest and have some water, and give the bullock also water. So what he does is, the camel is sitting, and the camel has a hump on its back. So he will latch the cart onto the camel's hump. He just pegs it on the hump, and he sits down to take a breather. And he's still continuing to dream. And then what happens? The camel gets up. What happens when the camel gets up?
The card is gone.
The cart, the bullock, everything is, goes haywire. The bullock, they escape and they run. They're hurt. The cart is broken, everything. And that moment, monkey was aha moment for him. He was liberated. He said, my God, I'm thinking of all these things, and I don't even have the wherewithal to go about, plowing my field. Now everything is gone. And so he says, destiny is more powerful. The camel rising, it is a symbol of destiny. How it is, we cannot see that. It's adrushta. You don't know when it will hit. So what's the point? Bhishma tells Yudhishthira and everyone who has come to see him on the deathbed, on the bed of arrows, Yudhishthira, Bhishma says, all my life, Krishna was right in front of me. And instead of looking at him, I was looking at the world. I thought my affairs were more important. I have to look after Hastinapura, I have to do this, I have to get my brothers married. What all I have done my entire life. But there, Krishna was right there in front of me. And I never looked at him. Looked at him in the sense, what he says is, I never surrendered to him, and my ego was in the front. Krishna was not in front. All the things I should have done with him in front of me, not with my ego. See, he's called as Bhishma because of his pratigna, isn't it? Bhishma means terrible, terrifying pratigna he made. I will never get married. I will never sit on the throne. All these pratignas came out of ego. Bhishma's huge ego. So that was his Bhishma's insight on his deathbed. And since he had Ichcha Mrityu, thank God, he could reflect, contemplate on all the things that he did during his lifetime. And when Bhagavan comes and stands in front of him along with the Pandavas, he says, now my life is fulfilled. At least now I'm able to see you without all my baggage of ego and all that. So the point is, why did this come? Ajnana. Yeah. Ajnana is what we have to get rid of as and when right now. There is no time. We don't know when when the camel will get up and upend our entire life. And so Bhagavan starts this shloka with, actually the whole Bhagavad Gita is starting from this shloka with Ashoka. Ashoka means do not grieve. That's why this is called a Pratigna shloka. Do not grieve. God is commanding Arjuna and all of us, do not grieve. No one has any right to be sorrowful. Why? Why I don't have a right to be sorrowful? Because what is my nature? As what do the scriptures say? What is my nature? It is Satchidananda. I am Ananda Swarupa. So the more I am sad, sorrowful, depressed, the more I am moving away from my own true nature. That is why you have no right to be sorrowful. You are Ananda itself. So the whole of life journey is to live as if live my true self, Ananda Swarupa. So we all know this Madalasa's lullaby, isn't it? Anyone heard of Madalasa's lullaby? She sings a beautiful song. She was an enlightened mother and a queen. And when the children were born, she used to put them in the cradle and sing to them. Shuddhosi, Buddhosi, Niranjanosi. Why are you crying? When the child is crying, she would say, why are you crying? You're Ananda. You know, the teaching has to start from the cradle for children. Don't cry. You're Ananda Swarupa. I am not born to suffer. We are not born to suffer. Okay, this is why he says, Nanu Shochanti Panditaha. Pandita is one who has no grief. That is the definition of a Pandita. Who is a Pandita? In modern day parlance, we use Pandita as if he's a Pandit who does puja and all, or a scholar. But the proper meaning of Pandita is the wise one, who knows his own true nature. So don't cry. And so in this particular shloka, Krishna says, okay, at the physical level, why I shouldn't grieve for Bhishma, Drona, I'm going to kill them, why I shouldn't grieve is a question. Arjuna, if he's asking that, what will Krishna say? No, we have to try to get into Krishna's shoes and answer Arjuna.
You say Nimitta Matra, you're doing this. This has already happened already, right? That's what he would say.
Yes. And anyway, yeah, that's very valid. Yes.
Arjuna has to do his duty. That is what is karma. He is moving away from his karma by not, grieving all this.
Correct. No, you can do karma, but you can still, feel sad, ala. Ayo, anta. So, if that is the case, Arjuna has those issues only, basically. Arey, I'm put in this
What
position.
happens is when someone is grieving, their mind is thinking more on that thing and not focusing on what needs to be done. So it's like he's moving away from his
Yeah.
what has to be done.
Karma and karma. Correct. Specifically about Bhishma and Drona, what would Krishna say? Anyone else? So, see, this Bhishma and Drona, they're very meritorious souls, isn't it? They have a lot of punya. So when they die, they're well taken care of. Don't worry. That's also one very, very, we feel happy when we kind of have a clue that the people who have left us are happier in some other world. Much better world, in fact. Much more happier. The heavens, the 7 upper lokas, are very happy lokas. And definitely this Bhishma and Drona are going to a better place, even if they die in the war. And all the soldiers who die on the battlefield, they attain Viragati, isn't it? That is the rule, that's the dharma. They attain Viragati. So why are you grieving for them? Even if they die, they have got a lot of punya. I will take care of them. In there, wherever they go, they are well taken care of. Bhishma was no ordinary soul, as we all know, isn't it? He was the one who gave the Vishnu Sahasranama. What a glorious, beautiful composition. It doesn't come from an ordinary mind. So who are you petty soul, actually? Arjuna is petty in front of Bhishma. So you don't grieve for such great people. It's not your job. I will take care of them. And the second point is, of course, as all of us said, all of us are Atma Swarupa. So there is no death for, nobody can kill them. Least of all Arjuna. You cannot kill them, You cannot kill anyone. So Ashochyam, do not grieve. They are not fit to be grieved. So that applies for every living being on earth. All among us, all punyatmas only, most of us. When we go, we are surely go to the higher lokas and we don't have to grieve for anyone among us. They're all well taken care of. And so, you know what the Mahatmas say about death and about grieving? There was this very Swami called Swami Ramatirtha. There is a there's a book, 7 volumes of book called In the Woods of God Realization. Completely, it's heavy duty Advaita book. Swami Ramatirtha. And this master used to call himself Rama. He would call himself as in the third person, Rama. To that extent, he had lost, he's dropped his BMI. He had dropped completely. And this Swami Ramatirtha used to tell people who would cry, he said, you first cry for yourself, show pity on yourself because you're an Ajnani. One Ajnani crying for another, Ajnani it's not helping anyone at all. You first show pity on yourself, he would say that. And if a devotee would come and cry in front of him, help me, I'm in great trouble, Rama, that Swami Rama, would laugh and say, I know you are Rama. This Mahatma Rama, he would see everyone as Rama only. Each and everyone who came in front of him was Rama to him. And he would laugh and tell that person in front of him, Rama, you're deceiving me by crying. I know you are Rama. Why are you crying? That was the way of his teaching them. He was not even teaching, he was being very genuine. Are you are Sachidananda, why are you crying? He saw people as that. He saw people as Rama himself. Rama, yes, Padmaja.
But how would that help them? Because they don't know their true
You
nature.
don't know, in the presence of a Mahatma, you never know what will click. See, that is grace. What is the job of a Mahatma? He is not an ordinary counselor. If you want some ordinary counseling, you go to your family members or you go to somebody else who will give you practical solutions. He's a Mahatma, he's an enlightened master. And what is the main job of an enlightened master? To snap you out of it. Come on, collect yourself, snap out of it, is what the teaching they will give.
I think it's just that presence will make the changes, I guess.
Definitely the presence, the words, you never know, because the grace, the energy field around them is so beautiful. The prana is so much around an enlightened soul. Why is
So
the
it need not be like a normal talking kind of thing.
It is not for normal counseling. Please don't go to any enlightened master. But if you want to get enlightened, please go. Of course, they will give depending on the level of maturity of the seeker. They will give. This is not. But this Swami Ramas, it is like that. He used to do that. Snap out of it. Uddharet Atmanam Atma. See, why Swami Rama? In Ramayana, Lord Rama, when he is banished, when he is exiled, and is waiting at the outskirts of Ayodhya, Bharata runs to him, crying copiously. He's crying, he's howling. He's so ashamed of his mom. He doesn't know how to make matters right, and he goes running to Rama. And what does Rama say? He said, Bharata, you cry for yourself. Don't cry for me. You don't know what is to come. You don't know why I have been, what the purpose of my avatara, you don't know. Hence, you are crying. Unnecessary. Now, in hindsight, don't we know that it's unnecessary that Bharata was crying? Huh? Because we know what all Lord Narayana accomplished through the avatar of Rama, isn't it? It was for Dharma Sanstapana. So much he accomplished in that 14 years of exile, Manavasa. So Rama tells Bharata, you cry for yourself. Simply don't waste time, crying for me. Whenever Master says cry for yourself, it means Jnana, come to Jnana. Why are you crying? You ask yourself why you are crying. So this is the methods used by gods and Mahatmas to make us snap out of it. Ramana Maharshi was one of the pioneer in this method. Anyone came crying in front of him, crying in front of him, he would console them and send. He's a very kind soul. See, this also depends on the different people, the constitution of the Mahatmas themselves, enlightened people. Ramana Bhagwan, of course, very, very compassionate. He would, of course, console them, and if they wanted food, they would give food or clothes or whatever. He would do all that. But to his close disciples, who were completely into Jnana Marga, who were there with Ramana to get liberated, that was their only agenda in life. To them, if they would read the newspaper and say, cha, 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 this happened in some, floods happened, some killings happened. If they started discussing those things, Ramana would tell them, Vanda Veleya Par. What is your business? Why have you come to me? You have come to me to get Jnana. You please concentrate on that. It is not your business to worry about the world's affairs. It sounds very cruel, but that's true. What can you do about the world's affairs? I will read something in the paper today. What can I do about it? At the most, if I'm in the position of doing something, I'll do about it. If I'm a bureaucrat, or if some administrator or a politician, if it's in my mere bas ki baat hai, to I can do. But as a citizen, what can I do about it? So read about it and dismiss it from your mind. Don't worry, fret about it. There are people who will take care of it. That doesn't mean become insensitive. No, that is not at all the point. But don't spend too much time dwelling on the negativities of the world.
I think because they have so much other things to do, they need to do their sadhana and get the jnana, and then that jnana has to spread across. I think that is what is the whole purpose of.
No, the moment you grieve about something, it means you have gone away from your true nature. Basically, that's the thing. The other has come. That object, everything has become, the world of duality is always there in me, Antartha. The moment I grieve about something, I'm still very much rooted in duality. That is why the moment to moment, I have to come back to my true nature. That was what Ramana used to do to his close disciples. Who are you? Ask who are you. That was his method. Who is grieving? That was his methodology. That is Vanda Veleya Par. You just see your work and go about your business. So same thing for Arjuna. Vanda Veleya Par. Why have you come to the battlefield? Do your dharma, do your karma, and go. Don't think too much. But basically, don't think too much is be rooted in yourself. That is the teaching. Be centered in yourself, and then do all your work. See, even this great sage like Narada Muni, Narada, even the Manasaputra of Brahmaji, but still he was not born enlightened. He had all the vidyas, every vidya he had, all the vidyas. Yet, he confesses to the Kumaras, the 4 Kumaras, his brothers, Manasaputras of Brahmaji, who were born enlightened. So he confesses to them that I know everything. 64 kalas, it's called, no? I know all this. I have knowledge of everything, all secular knowledge, about worldly knowledge I have. Yet, I don't have that peace of mind. That secular knowledge will not give us peace of mind. Even if I fix some worldly problem, it's not going to end. Endless. That cycle is endless. How many things can I fix in this world? In my own little world also, how many things can I fix? To what extent can I fix? So, the Sanat Kumaras, they give Narada the ultimate knowledge. This gives in the Chandogya Upanishad. This teaching of Sanat Kumaras to Narada. Okay. So what is the teaching? That everything, good, bad, ugly, joyful, sorrowful, every action, every emotion, everything, every person, everything arises and sets in me. the pure consciousness. This is the ultimate jnana. So, achoshyan anya shochasvam na anushocanti pandita. They are rooted in this knowledge, therefore, they don't know shoka for the pandita. And so Ramana also used to say everything is a krida, a game. That see, we should have these catch words or catch phrases that we can snap out, like a hypnotist does that, no? Hypnotizes a person, and before hypnosis he'll tell the person, when I click my finger you will come back, isn't it? Like that, we also need to have these catchphrases. This is mithya, this is a dream, this is all a play of Krishna, Maya, Krida. All these things should be our catchwords to come back to reality. Then devotees would ask Ramana, okay, if everything is Atma, if everyone is Atma, why are you speaking so much? Valid question. I am also Atma, you are also Atma. Then why are you talking so much? It is said that Ramana used to teach in silence, but still he has got a lot of composition. He used to teach his disciples, why are you talking so much? You know what a beautiful answer Ramana used to give them? Your way of worshipping that reality is by asking questions. My way of worshipping reality is to give answers. For him, everything was worship. For Ramana, everything is. So this is why that we should know about the life of Mahatmas, so that we get an insight of their, how they behave in the empirical world. That is why it is very important to read about the biographies of Mahatmas, know about how they went about their daily life, it's very beautiful. So the definition of Pandita is there grief? If there is grief in you, you are not a Pandita. Surface level grief is fine. But inside you, are you still? Do you know that you are Atman, and are you established in this? That is a Pandita. One more thing about Ramana, which is very beautiful, which I would love to share. This Ramana, hundreds of people used to come and see him. Even little children they would bring to do namaskara to Ramana, and the parents would tell the child, do namaskara to Ramana Tata. Do namaskara to Ramana Tata. Then he would tell, Ramana Maharshi would tell them, don't teach them that I am Tata. This Tata, Ajji, all the other relationships, we have enough in our life. Teach the children to look at, other persons as divine. It's not just for children. Ramana was divinity himself. This Tata will, kind of dilute that. He's just another regular Tata. So, Ramana's teaching was, all the relationship you have to see as divine. Don't look at them just as my child, my husband, my wife, my mother. Don't get into that mode of relationship, which we are already in that mode. Now it's time to dissociate. Everyone is Rama, everyone is Krishna, everyone is divine. It is not just my husband or just my child. It is divinity itself. So when I divinize that relationship, there will be reverence, there will be respect, and there will be a distance also. It's much more easier to have some detachment. That personalized equation, thoda we can, get out of it. Do you agree or not? What do you think? People have been talking continuously. Huh? Is it easy to divinize negative people? Can I look at an abuser and say, okay, he's also God? Is it possible?
It's difficult but possible, because once we know the true nature, once we know what is the reality, so everything is God. That's what I say. You see God in everybody, everything. It's not just living or non-living. Everything is this. It's all God's creation. It's all reflections of God.
Correct.
So once we know that, that has to sink in us first.
Yeah.
If that sinks, then it's easy.
For all this, grace is required. For everything, grace of God. This little boy, Prahallada, what a cruel father he had. Yet, he was able to look at everything about his father as divine. He had been given that vision by Lord Dattatreya. This Prahlada was born in the Asura clan, isn't it? And he was to be a Rakshasa, but he was not at all an Asura. He was a Sura in that sense. So this divine Prahlada was given that blessing by Lord Dattatreya that you will be able to see the divine in everything. Otherwise, that little child would not have survived, being with his father, Hiranyakashipu, isn't it? So he was so completely, in that bhava, even with that, very, very scary Narsimha Avatara. Even it is said that Lakshmi Devi was scared of this avatar of Bhagavan. But this Prahlada was not afraid. He was only able to see the smiling Narayana in everything and everybody. So that is the kind of Prahlada bhava that we should develop. Then there will be no shoka at all. There was no shoka at all for Prahlada at any point of time. He was put into fire, he was thrown from cliffs. What all happened to that Prahlada? But no shoka. So that is how in negative people also we should be able to see the divine, because we have got examples from our own Puranas how that can be done. Ultimately, everyone is divine. Ultimately, everything is Maya. And we know that Hiranyakashipu was actually a Jaya, Vijaya, that whole backstory we know. They had come here for a purpose. No?
The example will be that Valmiki, sage Valmiki, when he was a robber over there.
Yeah.
So, if that negativity was there, but someone has seen the divine nature and then, he changed himself. And he's one of those,
Completely correct. So in myself also, how many negativities I have, but I shouldn't let that bother me. I should rise higher and say, no, I am divine. And the negative also will be turned into positive. So this is all about why does a Pandita not grieve? Because he knows his true nature and he knows the true nature of everything around him, and therefore there is no grief. That was the whole thing about this one shloka.
Purnima, when ad comes in the TV, that some chips, he takes the chips and goes a little taller, 6'2", 6'4" kind of thing,
Oh,
like
okay.
that. Like that, we should, take these shlokas one by one and go higher and higher.
Yeah. Each one is a nutri-packed chip here, microchip, if you wish. Okay, then we come to 2.12. Anyone wants to pitch in with this shloka? Anything you want to tell? All right, let us chant the next shloka. Nattvevaham jatu nasam, natvam neme janadhipaha, na chaiva na bhavishyamaha, sarve vayamatah param. Chant. Padmaja, you want to chant? Anyone who wants to chant, you are welcome.
Natvevaham jatu nasam, natvam neme janadhipaha, na chaiva na bhavishyamaha, sarve vayamata param.
Yes. Inyaro chant ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ?
I'll go Punmi.
Yes.
Nattvevaham jatu nasam, natvam neme janadhipaha, na chaiva na bhavishyamaha, sarve vayamatah param.
Yeah.
Can I go?
Na-
Sure.
Oh, sure. Please go ahead.
Purnima. Sneha.
Okay.
Anyone?
Nat
Yes. Purnima.
Purnima ji. Nattvevaham jatu nasam, natvam neme janadipaha, na chaiva na bhavishyamaha, sarve vayamatah param.
Yes.
Shall I chant?
Yes, please.
न त्वेवाहं जातु नासं न त्वं नेमे जनाधिपाः न चैव न भविष्यामः सर्वे वयमतः परम्.
Very beautiful.
May I?
Yeah.
त्वेवाहं जातु नासं न त्वं नेमे जनाधिपाः न चैव न भविष्यामः सर्वे वयमतः परम्.
Anyone else want to take a shot? It is not that any time in the past, indeed, was I not, nor were you, nor these rulers of men. That means these kings. Nor shall we ever cease to be hereafter. Basically, it is said, he's saying, I was also there all the time. You're also there all the time. And these kings are also there. They are not, nobody is going anywhere, basically. That's what he is saying. So he is building more upon how the Atma is imperishable, immutable. More and more he is explaining about this only. So we were switching now. The commentators say, Shankaracharya says at this point, now you all switch to Krishna's viewpoint. The whole of the first chapter was Arjuna's viewpoint. Now the second chapter is, the entire Bhagavad Gita in fact is Krishna's viewpoint. Now you put yourself in his place and try to understand. No, so beautiful. So Arjuna must have been so confused. So it's very difficult to be an Arjuna and understand. Now you become Krishna. I am Satchidananda. So what will I tell Arjuna? Why I have to become Krishna? Because these things cannot be grasped by the senses. So one has to rise a little higher in consciousness to understand all these beautiful viewpoints. So as Krishna, what am I? I never cease to be. We know Krishna is Paramatma, he is Bhagavan, he is the Supreme Soul himself. So he was always there. I never cease to be. Not just me, Natvam, you also Krishna. So as Krishna, who I see everyone as me only. So I was also there. That means you were also always there. He's telling Arjuna. You are also always there. And these Janadipaha, these kings, they were also always there. So I am Krishna now. All of us are Krishnas and we are looking at the world through Krishna's eyes. Everyone is always there. They have never gone. He is Atma, I am Atma, everyone is Atma. Where will I go? The entire universe is me only. There is no place to hide. There is no place to hide. In what sense will I never cease to be? Because I am the changeless. I remain as the changeless because I am Atma Swarupa. I am eternal, indestructible, imperishable. As Krishna, I have to think. As a mind, there are innumerable differences between my mind, your mind, XYZ, 8 billion minds. Innumerable differences at the mind level alone. At the mind level. Body also has some same characteristics. You know, the functioning of the body is the same in all 8 billion people. The heart will pump, the kidneys will, filter, all these things are happening. Same. But the mind, millions of, permutations and combinatory iterations are there of the mind. But at the level of Atma, you and I and all these kings are one and the same. This is in this shloka, this is the teaching. In Shankara Bhashya, of course, a very beautiful example has been given to understand this very, very complicated. It is simple yet complicated for the human mind. Okay. Imagine if Krishna is telling Arjuna, we can extend our imagination a little bit and say, Arjuna, now imagine these two armies, okay, as pots. Replace all the individuals with pot, ghata. This ghata example is very famous in Vedanta. You think of all these, each and individual as a ghata, and put a crown on them or give them your weapons and all that. but they're all ghatas. Okay. So these ghatas are all occupying some space. All that 11 Akshohini, 18 Akshohini Sainyas, 18 Akshohini, pots are there, and they're all occupying one space, little space of each ghata. Now, when the pot is broken, where does the space go? Nowhere. Space is just space. When the ghatas are moving about, the soldier is rushing towards me, that fellow is rushing towards me with a sword. What is happening to the space? The space is not moving. It's just there, Some other space, some other space is moving along with the pot. Space is not moving, just the pot is moving. Like that, when you break even all the 18 Akshohini pots you break, nothing is happening to the space inside it. So that is how Shankara Bhashya describes this, gives this example for us to understand how it's always there. So we are all, the body complex is just a space, Ghatakasha, it is called. And we are all actually Chidakasha looking as Ghatakasha. When the body is destroyed, nothing is happening to the Chidakasha, nothing happening to the space. This Atma is Nitya Vastu. It's not going anywhere in a hurry. It's not going anywhere at all. So beautiful, no? That pots are moving about. Tuck, 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 tuck. All the pots are broken. Nothing. Space is still there.
That's why space is
how-
called the subtlest elements kind of thing.
Space is the subtlest
all.
and the nearest to Brahman. Closest to Brahman, which is incomprehensible by the senses. So many things are happening in this space. Yet, nothing happening to, when there is a smoke, when there is a fire, when there is rain, when there is dry, nothing is happening to space basically. It is just enabling all these things to happen. It's an enabler. It's a screen on which the movie can be projected. So, you and me and everyone, we are that screen, we are that space. Nothing is going to happen to either me or him, and I'm always there, always, 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 eternally there. Nothing is going to happen to me. So, what is the Vedanta Prakriya which will take me to that state? To tell me that I'm always there, irrespective of what I'm going through. The best example is deep sleep. Nothing is there in deep sleep for me. Everything has collapsed. Everything that I hold dear, even a newborn baby's mother, who is so attached, it is a piece of her body. I mean, nothing can come closer than that. A piece of my body, and when she's awake, she's taking care of the child so much, yet she's very happy to go to sleep, in deep sleep. She'll forget her child also. That means the Atma is Asanga. And who is that Atma? Me. I am Asanga. I forget everything in deep sleep. Whatever I hold dear to me in my waking state, everything I forget. It's completely gone. That shows that my real nature is Asanga. I am not attached to anything. This is the deep sleep in every day is demonstrating to me my true nature. Isn't it? So, this dwelling on the deep sleep state itself is a huge exercise that we can do to understand the deep sleep. Where was I in deep sleep? What was I in deep sleep? These are the questions we can ask ourselves. Where was I in deep sleep? I means in the sense the body mind. Where was I? It was not there. Therefore, I am not the body mind. Why? Because I am waking up the next day, no? Who is waking up? That's the question I have to ask. Who is waking up? Again, my reflection as Atma is reflected in the body mind. That is what is waking up. Through the sense organs, through the body mind, the Atma is again able to interact with the world. As Atma, I'm interacting through the world with this body-mind complex. And again, I go back to my own self in deep sleep. This is how the Vyavahara is happening to me every day. This is so crystal clear, in fact. Yet, I get lost in Vyavahara. I get lost in the Vyavahara of the world, forgetting that I am Atma, who is just being reflected through, all these things. Yes, these are some of the points we can talk about these slokas. Anything you want to ask? Please pitch in with any more inputs. So basically, know yourself as Atma, know everyone else as Atma. Nobody is going anywhere, nobody is coming, because all of us are Atma. Vivekananda's famous quote, he was asked, can you see God? What did he say? I see only God. What else is there? It's like that. So beautiful. Yes, so that is what whole 1 hour for 2 shlokas. Anyone, one line of what is your takeaway from today's class? One line. Yes.
It definitely prepares us to, for any kind of setback. I would like to think about grieving, about anything that is not just death of a kith or kin, or anyone, any human, or any being that we're attached to. It can be about it's about our own thoughts.
Yes.
Grief is a negative emotion. We have no right to
Yes.
be negative, to think negative. I would
Yes.
like to extrapolate this to every thought and watch my thoughts.
Yes. And see the thoughts themselves, how much can you hold on to one single thought? Thing, it just drops. That means we are Tyagamurtis. We can't even hold on to one thought. Tyaga is my nature. Isn't it? Body is continuously changing. Tyaga, it doesn't hold on to one shape or one size, Tyaga, tyaga, tyaga. Everything is tyaga only. The breath, every moment
Also,
it's going out.
when one is grieving, it basically means that grief thought you're giving too much of energy and time to that again and again and again. So I think
Correct. You're giving that thought, but that is also dropped when in deep sleep, na? The greatest of griefs. Okay, I can't sleep. Take a sleeping pill. You will go to sleep. And that thought is gone. That means tyaga.
my takeaway would be moment to moment, you have to come back to a true nature.
Howdu. Moment to moment, come back to true nature. Yes.
Everything is krida.
Everything is krida.
Yes.
Yes. Anyone else, please share one line of your understanding. Then we can close. Yes, Indra.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep reminding
Stay.
us of everything is unreal. Nothing is real. Everything is changing at
Yes.
any moment throughout the day.
Yes, correct. Everything is changing. Yeah. Amale, somebody was saying something. Okay. So is that it? Shall we close for the day and meet next week with more jnana? See, it's not about rushing through the shlokas, because each shloka we dwell on it and we have to assimilate the teachings basically. It's all in the same the different shlokas, the same thing is being said in different manners and different dimensions will be addressed.
I think
Okay.
since we are covering 700 shlokas, we can only the important ones we can delve longer. The others we can just do quick.
Did you feel these two are unimportant?
No, these are important.
Let us see. As
Yes.
we go, we will know. All right. Okay. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya Om Shanti 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 Nanu ನಾನೆಂಬುದು ನಾನಲ್ಲ, ಈ ದೇಹ ಮನಬುದ್ಧಿ ನಾನಲ್ಲ, ಸಚ್ಚಿದಾನಂದಾತ್ಮ ಶಿವನಾನು ನಾನೇ, ಶಿವೋಹಂ ಶಿವೋಹಂ ಶಿವೋಹಂ. ಲೋಕಾಃ ಸಮಸ್ತಾಃ ಸುಖಿನೋ ಭವಂತು, ಲೋಕಾಃ ಸಮಸ್ತಾಃ ಸುಖಿನೋ ಭವಂತು, ಲೋಕಾಃ ಸಮಸ್ತಾಃ ಸುಖಿನೋ ಭವಂತು. ಹರಿಃ ಓಂ ಶ್ರೀ ಗುರುಭ್ಯೋ ನಮಃ. ಹರಿಃ ಓಂ.